Coming up, an AEW versus NXT Twitter beef spirals out of hand. Bray Wyatt might not be returning to wrestling anytime soon. My review of Smackdown, and Tempest is going to be reviewing AEW Rampage.
Support WrestleTalk!
Now, Twitter is usually a place where reasonable, level-headed discussion of wrestling can go on in a peaceful and even-tempered manner. Is it bollocks? But this might actually take the biscuit. Because NXT star Cora Jade and AEW's Darby Allin found themselves trending worldwide after a war of words quickly turned personal in a now deleted Twitter spat. A fan responded to an image of Allin riding his skateboard in the park by saying he would like to see a skateboard match between Darby and Cora Jade. Now, Allin's response was a little bit spicy, saying skating is a huge part of my life and not a fake character for TV, lol. Pretty real. And then things got really real as Jade responded, being a good person with no abuse allegations against me is a huge part of my life and not just the character I play on TV. Jade was referencing the allegations of physical and sexual abuse leveled at Allin during the speaking out movement by indie wrestler Hawley Cromwell, a former tag partner of Jade on the independent scene. All of the tweets have now been deleted, but Jade has left a series of crying laughing emojis and this money face thing as a memento on her Twitter. Moving on to Bray Wyatt, who is yet to return to wrestling following his release from WWE earlier this year, and according to Dave Meltzer, we could be waiting quite a while longer. Writing in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave said that considering Wyndham had a contract similar to the one that Kevin Owens just signed, unless he was living incredibly large, he shouldn't have financial issues forcing him back until he feels like it. Wyndham is thought to be concentrating mostly on his movie for now, and Meltzer has said that he isn't sure if he will eventually sign with Impact or AEW, stating at one point he was apart on money from both promotions. So Wyndham not to AEW confirmed, kind of like Kevin Owens and potentially also now Sami Zayn. Because contract chatter this week has been suggesting that Zayn would be more likely to re-sign with WWE now that he's being featured heavily on TV, and his lifelong friend Kevin Owens has also re-upped his deal with the company for the next few years. Now, according to Dave Meltzer in this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter, Zayn may have already signed a new WWE contract, as wrestlers in the locker room are already reporting that he has. Meltzer wrote, in conjunction with being featured more heavily on television, Kevin Owens signed a multi-year deal with WWE. There's been locker room talk that Sami Zayn did as well, but WWE sources have not yet confirmed Zayn having signed to us yet. Now let's switch gears and review Smackdown. But first we've got to thank Barbaric Garrick Morgan and He Can Last Sean for Longer Than You in the Ring for their support on Patreon. Sorry about your name, Sean. Pete did it. I blame Pete. Now, the show was open with a recap of what went down with Sami Zayn last week when Paul Heyman did an accidental on purpose bit of advocating for the Beast Brock Lesnar. The show then opens with Paul in the parking lot after apparently not having spoken to Roman all week, waiting on Reigns to arrive and, I guess, take his hiding. You got a hiding coming to you, Paul. Here it comes. The first match on the card is Sasha Banks and Toni Storm taking on Shotzi and Charlotte Flair after Chaz got herself disqualified against Storm last week. There was not much to write home about in this pretty bog standard, pretty boring WWE tag match. Banks had a good hot tag with a leaping arm drag, a sort of sweet tilt-a-whirl counter and a double knees, double knees, there were two sets of double knees. And she also had Spider-Man gear on. That's good. The finish hit is Chaz misses a moonsault. She goes for the chasing one. She hits Toni Storm's knees before getting rolled up, and now they're set to meet again next week. This all felt very predictable, a little bit clumsy in places, and was hurt majorly by a classic case of ad-itis, where all of the control and momentum switched every single time we came back from the break. Boring. King Woods was backstage taking fealty from the peasants before the Usos interrupt to take the piss out of his cosplays. Rude, especially when you work in an industry where one of the most famous dudes pretended to be a zombie for 30 years. You can't come for cosplay. You can't. Anywho, Woods and Kofi say they're going to beat them tonight and on day one for the tag team titles, and the Usos say that no, they will be the ones who are going to be doing the winning twice now, tonight, and then also on day one. Why are there so many of this match? Why? Natalya then cut a promo on Xia Li saying that Li will need a protector herself if she gets in her way again. Someone's gonna get their face kicked off very soon. It's you, Natty. It's you. Good golly gosh, do I miss the War Raiders. As the Vikings, they're just Norse as good. Jinder and Shanky spent a lot of the time working over Eric, who was the smaller Viking, before Ivar, the larger one, got the hot tag, and then all of the big men hit each other. It's WWE booking. There was a couple of impressive shows of strength from Eric, and the big splash from Ivar sealed the deal, but this really does feel like the Vikings are just working at like 20% of their actual ability, and the booking of their matches is now so formulaic because I don't want to watch them. Alright? I don't want to watch them. Backstage, a car pulls up, and who's going to be in it? Is it Roman Reigns? No! It's how much Brock could a woodchuck Brock if a woodchuck could Brock would. It's Brock Lesnar in his dungarees. Him and Heyman share a polite word, and then we just move on. After a recap of Drew McIntyre reverse King Arthuring his sword into Adam Pearce's desk, the person who pulls out gets Adam Pearce's job, we go to Happy Talk, or the third circle of hell as I like to call it, where Corbin and Madcap Moss have the desk, they've got the sword and a bag full of bad jokes. I don't think you're supposed to hate the heels because they're just bad TV and actively stealing minutes of your existence. But there you go, Drew McIntyre finally interrupts after what feels like a eternity, and I was watching this on double speed. Poor you if you watch this live. He asks the lads if they're having performance issues, he knocks them down, he pulls the sword out, so he's got Adam Pearce's job next week, and then he almost beheads Happy Corbin. What a load of bullshit. Sami's then backstage with Pearce and Deville asking for another Universal title shot. Instead, he's going to be entered into the 12 Days of Christmas Gauntlet for an Intercontinental title shot. He is rightfully pretty pissed about that. Look out guys, it's Ridge Holland and his Beef Crisps next to take on Cesaro with the help of Sheamus at ringside. Before the match even begins, Ridge has clobbered Cesaro in the ribs with his billy club. We come back from the break and Cesaro's all taped up, painting a big old target for Ridge, who awkwardly works the ribs. And then just as Cesaro fires back, Sheamus is distracting him from the outside. You get one more rib shot and a power slam puts Cesaro away. This didn't work. It was bad. Backstage, Drew McIntyre's got a fancy hat and now he's looking for Corbin and Moss. Okay. Naomi then arrives to call out Sonya Deville after the triple teaming she suffered last week. On her Christmas list this week is just one thing, a match with Sonya Deville. Sonya says, "Nuh-uh, I'm wearing my suit and you can't touch me, but I have lined up someone for you." It's Shayna Baszler who attacks from behind. Sonya then calls for the bell and Baszler zeroes in on the leg, but she's rolled up by Naomi. It is a waste of a segment. It is a waste of Shayna Baszler. It is another waste of a finish. Another roll-up. Backstage, Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss are hiding in the dark in a cupboard, and Corbin says that Moss is going to face Drew on New Year's Eve. Moss isn't happy about it. I'm not happy about it. I wish this would end. We're 15 minutes from the end of the show, and the first good match of the night comes on when the New Day and the Usos repeat a match that they've been doing since day one-ish. Now the through line here was that the official was an incompetent boob and missed a couple of tags. Firstly for the New Day, giving the Usos a chance to beat down Kofi, and finally for the Usos, which gave Kofi a chance to hit Trouble in Paradise for the win. This was, as you'd imagine, this was good. There were some great exchanges here, and Woods was busting his ass with his hot tag, literally on a sky-high leg drop from the top that must have split him right open like X-Pac scooping his hoop on the bottom rope. Good stuff. We've seen it before. The moment we've all been waiting for, and the whole show has felt like it has been waiting for. Reigns finally arrives. He gets out of the wrong side of the car to Paul. He looks pissed. He says, "Let's go have a chat." He's got this new Needle Mover t-shirt, taking a pot shot at CM Punk in his hometown of Chicago. I'm expecting the Needle Dick Response t-shirt any day now. Roman says that he can forgive the Usos a loss because they are blood, but Paul is not blood, so he's going to need to answer some questions. He asks whether Paul knew that Brock was coming back, whether he knew he'd be at MSG, whether he knew the suspension would be lifted. Is he a special counsel or is he an advocate? Which they're the same thing. I feel like this sort of Paul on a pole match is being set up. Now, in a brilliant bit of promo work, Heyman says that he hasn't been protecting Brock from Roman, he's been protecting Roman from Brock. Oh my God. Roman then hugs him, says he loves him, and thanks him for his 40 years of service, and then fires Heyman. I love this. This was like true mafia fashion. It was this heartfelt, honest goodbye, followed by an absolute bloody murder, because it was a Superman punch and then Roman was going to go for a concerto before Brock arrives, fresh from the farm, to make the save. Brock farm handles the Usos, laughing off a super kick to hit the F5, and then laughs off chair shots in the ring to hit an F5 on Roman with another for good measure. Oh. This added some much needed excitement to the show and some nice spice to the setup for day one, with Heyman being fired but ultimately proven right in his protection of Roman. So without his wise man, is Roman going to make some sort of critical mistake when he goes up against the Beast on day one? Is Heyman going to be the guy to swing it in Brock's favor? Once again, Roman was the only truly good thing on Smackdown. The rest of the show felt like it was running in place. It lacked excitement, inventive wrestling, and drama all the way through. The Usos of the New Day managed a perfectly fine match, but at this point we've seen it so many times it's really hard to care. And we've got to watch it again in 2 weeks anyway. WWE is basically in desperate need of a serious shake-up and some bloody imagination when it comes to the stories they're trying to tell, because this episode of SmackDown was poor. Let's get a Tempest to see if Rampage was any better.
Well, I mean, I guess I'll put this on now. Lord knows Tempest isn't working Christmas Day. What's going on, WrestleTalk friends and fans? Tempest Claus is back with another review of AEW Rampage in about 3 minutes. So this show opened with a big 8-man tag match as the Super Click and Bobby Fish took on Best Friends, Orange Cassidy, and Rocky Romero. Now, right off the bat, I get to see the members of Roppongi Vice mixing it up together once again, so hey, this match already starts with a thumbs up. If you show me anything from 2015 New Japan, I will just smile and nod and say thank you. You are appealing to the very kind of fan that I am. And the rest of the match was good too. The Super Click are awesome, but everybody already knows that, and Bobby Fish was able to hit a big Falcon Arrow off the top rope for a near fall, but the biggest takeaway was, of course, all the interplay between Trent and Chuck Taylor. There's something different about Trent now. He's got the shaved head, but we seem to be heading in the direction for a major character change for him, so he's definitely one to keep an eye on. We also got teases of Adam Cole versus Orange Cassidy, which will be happening next week, before Trent was able to hit Storm Zero on Bobby Fish for the win. This was the party match that was non-stop fun, and it was an excellent way to open up the show. This gets a 4 out of 5. We then got the AEW return of Dan Lambert. Yay! You know, there are a lot of AEW stars that are off TV right now that I'm really missing, like Kenny Omega, Jon Moxley, Miro. Dan Lambert, not quite on that list. He cuts a promo about Tony Khan, man, and this and that and the other thing and blah blah blah. Eventually he was interrupted by Cody Rhodes and they swiped the microphone from each other about 6 times before Cody Rhodes just attacked Men of the Year. Eventually Sammy Guevara had to come out to try and even up the odds. This seems to be a rivalry with a bunch of people that aren't super interesting right now. Cody Rhodes could be interesting, but right now if he's just going to continue to play the role of babyface and not base his character off of what's going on with the people in the crowd, not that into it. Like, he was just trying to be the babyface in this segment and they were still booing him. Also, why are you still booing him after that table spot? You see what that man does for us? What he does for this business? I feel like I've waited long enough for Men of the Year to do something interesting and they just haven't done it, and I'm still not that into Sammy Guevara's TNT title reign. The matches are good, but there's just no storyline oomph to it. I wasn't super into this as a promo segment, but as a brawl it was fine. This gets a 2 out of 5. And then we had the submission match as Ty Conti took on Penelope Ford. Yeah, I was told last week that it was supposed to be Penelope. Yes, I was mispronouncing my mispronunciation. This match was good and bad in places. They were a little bit sloppy early on, and a submission match is a really tough gimmick to try and get over in the first place. Because near falls are such a big part of American wrestling, taking all near falls away and only having submission attempts for people to get into for the finish just kind of starts things off on the wrong foot with most crowds. Conti and Ford still managed to make the most of this match, but you gotta be really good to make a submission match really good. I liked about half of this match, so I'm going right in the middle. That gets a 3 out of 5. And then we got the main event 10-man tag matches. Eddie Kingston, the Lucha Brothers, and Santana and Ortiz took on 2.0, Daniel Garcia, and the Acclaimed. This match started out with a pretty insane brawl and really kept that pace kind of throughout. There was a lot of high spots in this match, lots of dives, before eventually Daniel Garcia pinned Eddie Kingston with a handful of tights. The fans were not prepared for this one, completely booing the finish and chanting bullshit. This was not their cup of tea, and we really don't get to see upsets like this in AEW super often. This will probably be part of the character direction of Eddie Kingston. He's had a few big losses in a row now, and this one will probably be the one to set him over the edge. After the match, the heels tried to beat down Eddie Kingston a little bit more before he was saved by the Jurassic Express, who came out and seemed to be the next ones in line for a shot at the tag team titles. Santana and Ortiz are standing right there. The longer AEW puts off a Santana and Ortiz tag team match, the more I'm thinking that they're going to be the ones to beat the Lucha Brothers for them. If not, why wouldn't they have done them already? If they go the direction of Jurassic Express, which it looks like they are at this point, I could see a heel turn from Christian coming in the near future. I would very much be interested in seeing that as well. More match possibilities means more smiles on Tempest's face. The main event was definitely still fun because it's very hard not to have a good time watching guys like the Lucha Brothers and Santana and Ortiz, but that finish really sucked the life out of this building, and Jurassic Express didn't really get it back. I'm going to give the main event a 3 out of 5, and I'm giving AEW Rampage overall a 3 out of 5 as well. And that just about wraps it up for me. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on this week's show and last night's SmackDown, make sure you go over to WrestleTalk Podcast later on today, where myself and Lori Blake will be reviewing both shows in complete detail. Make sure you check that out. Pete's off because he already knows that LIW is fine.
You know, Friday night, once you've finished and you've watched it, I will fully expect a text message from you telling me that I was right.
So how are we going to do this? How are we gonna talk about Spider-Man, a film you've seen? None of us have. Maybe a few people have. We know people who booked a day off work to go see it.